Junsu wiped the sweat from his forehead. The Jeju Island sun was hot. He carefully brushed dirt away from a piece of pottery. Another day, another small discovery. His life was quiet and normal. He liked it that way. The archaeological dig site was small. His team had only 3 people. They were looking for signs of old Korean settlements. So far, they had found broken plates and tools. Nothing special. Junsu's friend, Taeyong, was working a few meters away. "Find another rock that looks like a plate?" Taeyong joked. "Maybe," Junsu smiled. "But it's our rock. That's what matters." He moved to a new spot. His trowel hit something hard. Not stone. It made a soft clink sound. He cleared more soil. A smooth, dark gray metal surface appeared. It was not rusty. It was perfectly clean. "Taeyong, come look at this." Taeyong came over. They both dug carefully. Soon, they uncovered a flat, circular object. It was about the size of a dinner plate. It had no seams or buttons. It was just a smooth, cool disc. "What is that? A manhole cover?" Taeyong asked. "It doesn't look like any metal I know," Junsu said. He touched it. The moment his fingers made contact, the disc glowed with a soft blue light. Both men jumped back. The light pulsed gently. Then, lines of light shot from the disc into the air above it. The lines formed a 3-dimensional map. It was a map of stars. A small, blinking symbol pulsed near a bright star on the map. It was beautiful and silent. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The map vanished. The disc went dark and inert again. It looked like just a piece of metal. Taeyong stared. "Was that a hologram? A movie?" "I don't think so," Junsu whispered. He felt a strange pull in his chest. A deep, quiet feeling he couldn't explain. He picked up the disc. It was light. It felt warm now, not cold. They reported the find to their professor. The professor was excited but confused. He said it must be some modern art or a military thing. He told them to put it in a box for later study. Junsu packed it, but he couldn't forget the star map. That night, he dreamed of a vast, quiet darkness filled with distant suns far away, across distances the human mind could barely picture. A signal was received on a ship the size of a city. In a chamber of quiet light, a woman opened her eyes. She had been sitting in meditation for weeks. Her name was Elia, but for over 900 years, most beings called her Empress. A soft chime sounded in her mind. A screen of light appeared before her. On it was a genetic sequence, a string of code that had not been seen in the galactic records for 9 centuries and 10 years. Next to it was an image from a primitive planetary database. It was a young man with a kind, confused face, holding a dirt-covered trowel. Elia's breath caught. The immense weight of her years, the loneliness of rule, the endless waiting, all tightened in her throat. Her hands, which had signed treaties that shaped star systems, trembled. Her aide, Kale, a tall man with a serious face, entered. "Your Majesty? The signal? It is verified." "It is him," she said. Her voice was soft but filled with a power that made the air hum. "The resonance is exact. The beacon on that lost world has finally awakened for its key. The planet is pre-contact. A protected world called Earth," Kale stated, checking data. "Protocol demands a slow introduction. First contact teams. Cultural evaluation. Could take years." Elia stood. Her simple robe seemed to catch the starlight from the viewport. In that moment, she was not a timeless empress. She was a woman who had waited lifetimes. "No," she said. Her tone left no room for argument. "We will not wait another day. We will not send committees. Plot a direct course. I will go myself. Your Majesty, the political risk. The traditionalists on the High Council will call it madness." "Let them," Elia said, a faint, weary smile touching her lips. "I have followed every protocol, every rule, for 900 years. I have held our empire together through wars and silence. For this, I break the rules." She looked at the image of the man, Junsu. He was looking at something off camera, smiling slightly. An ordinary man on an ordinary world, All my power, she whispered to herself, all my centuries were just to bring me back to this moment, to find you. The great ship, a jewel of technology, turned in the void, its engines silent to the outside universe, engaged. It began its journey. The trip would take 3 Earth days. On Earth, Junsu went back to his life. He stored the strange disk. He had dinner with his family. He told them about finding weird metal. He did not mention the star map. It seemed too impossible. He tried to forget the strange feeling in his chest that he did not know his world was being watched. He did not know a ship was coming. He did not know that his simple, quiet life was about to end. In 3 days, the sky would open, and a 910-year-old queen would walk into his life and call him her own. The sky over Seoul was a clear, pale blue. It was a normal afternoon. People were walking in the streets, having coffee, going to work. Junsu was in his small office at the university. He was looking at photos of pottery shards. The strange metal disc was in a box on a shelf. He tried to focus on his work. A shadow fell across his desk. It was not from a cloud. The light through his window just dimmed. A low hum vibrated through the floor. It was a feeling more than a sound. The air pressure changed, making his ears pop. Outside, people stopped. They pointed up. Voices rose from a murmur to a shout of confusion. Junsu stood and walked to the window. He looked up. His mind went blank. It could not process what he was seeing. Hanging in the sky, silent and immense, was a ship. It was not like any plane or helicopter. It was shaped like a smooth, flat teardrop. Its surface was the color of pearl, and it shimmered with soft rainbows, like oil on water. It blocked the sun, casting a vast, cool shadow over the city. It made no noise. It just hung there, beautiful and impossible. Chaos erupted in the streets. Car horns blared. People screamed and ran or stood frozen, filming with their phones. Sirens began to wail in the distance. From the bottom of the ship, a beam of pure white light descended. It touched the ground in the large plaza near City Hall. The light was solid like a pillar. There was no smoke or fire. It was clean and quiet. A figure stepped out of the light. The beam vanished. The woman stood alone in the center of the plaza. She wore a simple suit of gray material that seemed to move like liquid. Her hair was dark and long. She looked young, perhaps in her late 20s. But her eyes, anyone who saw them on a screen felt a chill. Those eyes were calm, ancient, and saw everything. This was Empress Ilia. Soldiers and police formed a nervous ring around her. They pointed weapons, their hands shaking. Ilia ignored them. She looked at the buildings, at the people, with a curious sadness. Then, she began to walk. She walked with purpose. Her steps were slow and steady. No one tried to stop her. The crowd parted before her like water. An invisible force gently pushed people aside, creating a clear path. She did not look left or right. She knew exactly where she was going. In his office, Junsu watched the news feed on his computer. He saw the woman walking. He saw the fear and wonder on the faces around her. His heart was pounding. He felt a strange, magnetic pull. He could not look away from her image. His phone rang. It was Taeyong. Junsu, are you seeing this? It's landing. The news says it's heading toward the university district. That's not possible, Junsu whispered. But the feeling in his chest, the same feeling from the dig site, was back. It was stronger now. A deep, resonant hum inside his bones. He heard a new sound from outside his building. Not sirens. A crowd. A murmur of thousands of voices. He ran out of his office and into the hallway. Other professors and students were crowded at the main entrance, looking out. Junsu pushed through the doors and onto the university steps. The plaza in front of the old library was packed. In the center was an empty circle, and in that circle, walking straight toward the steps where he stood, was the woman from the stars. She saw him. Her gaze locked onto his from 50 meters away. Time seemed to stop for Junsu. The noise of the crowd faded. In that moment, there was only her impossible, ancient eyes looking right into him. She walked up the steps. The students and teachers fell back. A wave of movement. She stopped one step below him. They were now at the same height. He could see the fine details of her clothes, the subtle light in her eyes. She smelled like ozone and a cold, clean wind. She spoke. Her voice was clear and calm, carried without shouting. It was heard by everyone nearby and by the millions watching on screens around the world. She spoke in perfect, gentle Korean. "My name is Ilya. I have come from very far away." She paused, her eyes never leaving his. "I have searched the stars for a very, very long time. For 910 years. She reached out her hand. It was a simple human gesture. Junsu looked at her hand. He looked at her face. He was frozen. He was an archaeologist who liked old pots. He was nobody. "The waiting is over," she said. A single tear traced a line down her cheek, but her voice remained strong. She took his hand in hers. Her touch was warm and firm. Then she said the words that shattered his world. She turned slightly, speaking to the galaxy, to Earth, to him. "I have found you. This is my husband." The silence was absolute. For 1 second, no one breathed. Then the sound erupted: shouts, gasps, the frantic clicks of cameras. Junsu stared at her. He felt the world spin. His vision blurred at the edges. The words echoed in his head. "My husband. My husband. My husband." He saw his friend Taeyang's shocked face in the crowd. He saw the global news cameras pointed at him. He felt the warm, sure grip of the 910-year-old Empress's hand that he did not faint. But he felt like he was falling up into a sky that was no longer his own. The world became a blur of noise and light. Junsu was led away, the Empress's hand still holding his. Her touch was the only solid thing in a universe that had tilted sideways. They moved through a corridor of stunned people, into a smaller university building that had been quickly cleared. They were taken to a quiet conference room. Earth security officials stood outside, their faces pale. The Empress's own guard, 2 tall men and a woman in sleek gray uniforms, stood inside. They were utterly still, their eyes watchful. One was Kale, her aide. He looked at Junsu with cold, analytical focus. Ilya finally let go of Junsu's hand. He immediately felt unsteady, like a boat cut loose. He sat down heavily in a chair. "You are confused," Ilya said. Her voice was softer now, but it still filled the room with a quiet authority. "Confused?" Junsu's voice cracked. You come from the sky. You say you're 900 years old. And you tell the whole planet I'm your husband." He put his head in his hands. "This is a dream. A bad, strange dream." "It is not a dream, Junsu," she said. She said his name carefully, as if it were a precious word. An Earth official, a woman named Mira, stepped forward. She was the government's liaison for whatever this was. She looked as shocked as everyone else, but she was trying to be professional. "Empress Ilya," Mira began, her voice respectful but firm. "You must understand. This is a tremendous shock. For Junsu and for all of us. We need an explanation." "Why him?" Ilya looked at Mira, then back at Junsu. "The sovereignty I rule is ancient. Its stability is maintained by certain laws, traditions. One of the oldest states that the ruling line must be bonded with a specific genetic match." "A genetic match?" Junsu looked up. "The artifact you found was a beacon. It has slept on your world for millennia. It only wakes for one specific genetic signature. Yours." She gestured, and a small light projected an image of his own DNA code next to another, older one. They were a perfect match. "This is not an accident. It is a lock and you are the key." "A key to what?" he asked. "To the ancestral archive. A repository of all our history, technology, and wisdom. Without the bonded consort present, the archive remains sealed. The line of succession weakens. Factions grow restless." Kale, the aide, spoke for the first time. His voice was like stone. "For centuries we have searched. Your genetics were lost. Without you, a crisis is inevitable. Civil war across star systems is a probable outcome." Junsu stared. They were talking about galaxies and wars. He lived in a small apartment. He paid student loans. So, I'm a biological password? He said. The words tasting bitter, Elia's gaze flickered with something, pain or guilt. It is the law of my people, the public reason. The stability of billions depends on this union. Mira cleared her throat. And if he refuses? The room went very cold. Kale answered. The Empress would be in violation of core law. Rival houses would challenge her rule. The resulting power struggle would be catastrophic. Your world, newly contacted, would be vulnerable in the chaos. They were not asking him. They were telling him the stakes. The weight pressed down on Junsu's shoulders. He saw it in Myra's eyes, the calculation. Earth stood to gain unimaginable technology, protection, a seat in a galactic community. All because of him, because of this strange blood in his veins. What does union mean? Junsu asked quietly. A ceremony, Elia said. A public bonding ritual. It satisfies the law. It opens the archive. It ensures peace. A wedding. You mean a wedding? Yes. He laughed. A short, desperate sound. You don't even know me. I know what you are, she said. And for a second, her ancient eyes were full of a loneliness so deep it stole his breath. And the law does not require me to know your favorite color or your dreams. The message was clear. This was politics. This was duty. For her and now for him. Hours passed. He was taken to a secure room alone. Mira visited him. She explained the situation from Earth's view. An alliance with the galactic sovereignty would change everything for humanity. Medicine, energy, travel. It was the biggest moment in human history, and he was at the center. They say if you refuse, the instability could spill over to us, Mira said gently. We would be alone in a suddenly very big and very dangerous universe. Taeyong was allowed a brief call. His friend's face was on a screen, full of worry. Junsu, are you okay? This is insane. You can't actually do this, can you? What choice do I have, Taeyong? Junsu whispered. They say billions of people, maybe Earth too, need this to happen. It's not about me. It's about being a key. He felt like a stone dropped in a pond. The ripples were too big to understand. Later, Elia visited him again, alone. She seemed less like an empress now, just a tired woman in a strange room. I know this is not fair, she said, to pull you from your life. But my duty is to my people. And now your duty is to yours. Both of our peoples. He looked at her. She was beautiful, but she was a stranger. A monument, not a person. He was a simple man asked to hold up a pillar of the universe. With a heavy heart, feeling like he was signing away his own life, Junsu nodded. Okay, he said, the word hollow. I'll do the ceremony. For peace. It was a decision made from pressure, from fear, from the crushing weight of too much responsibility. He agreed to be a symbol, a political husband. He told himself it was just a formality, a strange job to save worlds. He convinced himself that after the wedding, things would become clear, or at least quiet. He was wrong. The journey to the imperial capital was a haze. Junsu was given rooms on the ship that were like a luxurious hotel, but he felt like a prisoner in a museum. Everything was beautiful, smooth, and silent. He saw stars streak by the window, actual faster-than-light travel, and felt nothing but a numb dread that he was dressed by quiet attendants in robes of deep blue and silver. The material was light but felt heavy on his shoulders. He looked at himself in a mirror. A stranger looked back. A man playing the part of a galactic prince. The capital world was named Illyria. The city was all crystalline spires and floating gardens under a sky with 2 small moons. The air smelled like unknown flowers. The ceremony was to be held in the Hall of Echoes, a place so old, Elia had told him, that it remembered the first songs of her people. Billions were watching, not just from the Empire but from Earth too. It was the biggest broadcast in human history. Junsu walked down a long pathway of glowing stone. The path was lined with beings from 1,000 worlds, some human-like, others very much not. Their eyes were on him. He heard whispers, felt the weight of their stares. At the end of the path was a wide, round platform, open to the sky. Ilya waited for him. She was a vision in white and gold, her hair woven with gems that caught the light of the twin moons. She looked every bit the immortal Empress. She gave him a small, formal nod as he arrived beside her. It was not the look of a bride. It was the look of a partner finalizing a treaty. A tall, elderly figure in elaborate robes began to speak in a language that flowed like water. Junsu understood none of it. A soft device behind his ear translated the words into a whisper. Bound by fate and the ancient codes, for the stability of the stars. The key turns the lock. It was all about law and legacy and destiny. There was no mention of love, or companionship, or joy. Junsu stood stiffly, repeating the words his earpiece told him to say. His voice sounded flat and distant, even to himself. The central moment of the ritual arrived. Between them, a pedestal rose from the floor. On it sat the Soul Star. It was not a star at all, but a smooth, milky white sphere about the size of a grapefruit. It pulsed with a gentle, inner light. The joining of hands upon the Soul Star, the officiant said. A symbol of unity, a merging of purpose. Ilya extended her hands, palms down, over the sphere. Her expression was serene, untouchable. Junsu slowly lifted his own hands, mirroring her. Their fingers did not touch. Only the backs of their hands hovered an inch above the cool, glowing surface. As soon as his skin neared the light, he felt it. A vibration. It started in his hands and shot up his arms into his chest. It was a deep, resonant hum, like striking a bell that only he could hear. For a second, a flash of color. Not with his eyes, but in his mind, a burst of gold and deep blue. A feeling of incredible speed, of wind, of laughter. Then it was gone. He jerked his hands back a little, startled. Ilya's eyes flicked to his, sharp and questioning. Had she felt it too? But her face smoothed back into calm neutrality. She gave a slight, almost imperceptible shake of her head. A warning. He steadied himself. He placed his hands back. The hum was still there, but fainter now, a background buzz. The officiant declared the bonding complete. The crowd, both in the hall and across worlds, erupted into a sound that was not quite applause, a harmonic chant that filled the air. It was done. The rest of the evening was a blur of formalities. A grand reception in a hall filled with floating lights. Junsu was introduced to dignitaries whose names and titles he forgot instantly. He smiled until his face hurt. He sipped a drink that tasted like moonlight and spice. Ilya stayed by his side, a graceful and distant presence. She would occasionally touch his arm to guide him, but her touch was cool and brief. He caught Earth's envoy, Mira, watching him from across the room. She gave him a supportive smile and a thumbs up. The signal was clear. You're doing great. You're saving the day. He felt sick. Finally, they were led away to the private imperial quarters. The doors closed, and the vast, echoing silence of the palace wrapped around them. They were in a sitting room larger than his entire apartment on Earth. Stars shone through a ceiling that was perfectly clear. The formal mask on Ilya's face fell away. The regal posture softened. She walked to the window and looked out, her back to him. She seemed suddenly smaller. Junsu stood awkwardly in the middle of the room, still in his heavy robes. The strange hum from the Soul Star was finally gone from his body, leaving him empty. Well, he said, his voice too loud in the quiet. The ceremony is over. The law is satisfied. What happens now? He expected more politics, a discussion of his role, his duties as a symbol. He was prepared to be a prisoner in a gilded cage. Ilya turned from the window. The starlight outlined her, and he saw, to his utter shock, that she was crying. Silent tears streamed down her cheeks, but she was smiling. It was a smile of such profound, aching relief and joy that it transformed her entirely. She was no longer an empress. She looked at him, and her voice was a whisper filled with 900 years of longing. Now, she said, I can finally tell you the truth. The tears on Elia's face were real. The smile was real. The ancient, weary empress was gone. In her place stood a woman who looked young and lost and overwhelmingly relieved. Junsu could only stare. The truth? He repeated, his voice hollow. You said the truth. I'm a genetic key. A political solution. That is what they believe, Elia said, wiping a tear away with the back of her hand. A simple, human gesture. That is the story for the High Council, for the Empire, for your Earth leaders. It is a good story. It is clean. It is about law and stability. She took a step toward him. It is a lie. Junsu felt the floor shift under him again. What? The archive was sealed by my husband's choice, not by a genetic lock, she said, her words coming faster now, as if a floodgate had opened. He was a commander. His name was Taejin. 910 years ago, our ship was dying. He stayed behind to reroute power to push my escape pod clear. The last thing he said was that he would find his way back to me. Her eyes shimmered. He believed in reincarnation, in the journey of the soul. Our scientists, our laws, they don't accept such things. They needed a physical reason. So I gave them one. I don't understand, Junsu whispered. I used my power. I created the myth of the genetic key. I had beacons placed on likely worlds. I programmed them to search for one thing, and one thing only, the unique energy signature of his soul. Not his genes, his essence. She looked at him with a desperate hope. The artifact you found did not react to your blood, Junsu. It reacted to you, the you that has always been. The memory of the soul star's hum, the flash of speed and laughter, rushed back. His mouth went dry. The ceremony. The soul star doesn't verify genetics. It resonates with spirit, confirms a returned soul. That hum you felt, that was you recognizing yourself. That was Taejin recognizing me. She hugged her arms around herself. I have waited through centuries. I have ruled an empire alone. I have listened to councils argue about a biological key I invented, all while I scanned the galaxy for a spark of the man I loved. And today the star glowed for you, for us. Junsu stumbled back and sat heavily on a low couch. The weight of her words was too much. You're saying I'm him? That I'm this Taejin? Not in the way you think, she said quickly, kneeling on the floor before him, her regal composure completely gone. You are Junsu. You lived your life. You have your memories, your heart. But within you is a echo, a second melody. The man I loved is a part of you now. The ceremony began to wake that part up. That is why you will start to remember things, places you've never been, skills you've never learned. He thought of the strange feelings since touching the disk, the deep pull, the dreams of stars and command decks. A cold fear settled in his stomach. You're erasing me. No, she said, her voice fierce. I am finding you. I love Taejin. I have always loved him. But I am meeting you. Junsu, who is kind and curious and digs in the dirt for pieces of the past. She reached out as if to take his hand, but stopped herself. I have had 9 centuries to mourn my husband. I do not want a ghost. I want the man he became. I want the man you are. He put his head in his hands. It was too big. It was one thing to be a tool, a key. It was a simple, sad role. This was something else. This was being told his soul was not his own. That he was sharing his mind with a legend. That this powerful, ancient woman loved a shadow inside him. The politics, the danger of war you talked about, he mumbled into his palms. That part is real, she admitted, her voice quieter. The traditionalists, led by a high minister named Valerius, would see our union as false, a corruption of the law, if they knew the spiritual truth. They would use it to overthrow me. The stability of the empire does depend on this, but not because of an archive. It depends on them believing the lie. On them believing you are the legitimate key. He lifted his head. He looked at her, really looked. He saw the incredible loneliness, the centuries of carrying this secret alone, of governing a galaxy while searching for a single lost soul. He saw not an empress, but the most patient and desperate person in the universe. "So what do we do?" he asked, exhausted. "We live the lie. In public, you are my consort, the genetic key. In private," she offered a tentative, fragile smile. "In private, we learn. You learn about this new life. And I learn about you. All of you." Just then, a sharp, piercing pain lanced through Junsu's temple. He gasped. Behind his eyes, an image flashed, clear and bright. Not the star map from the disk, but a control panel and a hand. His hand? Flipping switches with confident speed. A woman's laugh, warm and familiar. Ilya's laugh. It was gone as fast as it came. He was left breathing hard, the ghost of the memory tingling in his fingers. Ilya saw his shock. Her hope turned to concern. "It begins," she said softly. "I am so sorry. And I am so glad." Junsu sat in the silent, starlit room, caught between two lives. The simple archaeologist was receding. The echo of a commander was growing louder. And a 910-year-old woman who loved both versions was watching him, waiting to see which man would answer. The memories came like pieces of a broken mirror. They were sharp, bright, and they cut him. Junsu would be looking at a strange fruit at breakfast, and suddenly know its name from a garden on a world with 3 suns. He would hear a tone from a ship's system and his fingers would twitch, remembering a sequence to input. The strongest memories were of Ilya, but a younger Ilya, her hair shorter, her laughter louder. He saw her in a pilot's chair, complaining about a navigational reading. He felt a surge of protective love that was so deep it stole his breath. That love belonged to Commander Taejin. It felt like a ghost was hugging him from the inside. He was sharing his mind. It was not a gentle process. He felt split in two. He was Junsu, who missed Earth, who worried about his parents, who wanted to finish his paper on Jeju pottery. And he was becoming someone else, someone who thought in battle formations and star charts. He asked for a secure communication line to Earth. He needed to talk to someone from his real life. The only face they allowed was Taeyong. His friend's image appeared on the screen in his private room. Taeyong looked tired. "Junsu, man, you look different." "I feel different," Junsu said, his voice flat. "It's not just the fancy clothes, Taeyong. They say." "She says I'm someone else. Someone from her past. Reincarnated." Taeyong stared, his mouth open. "What? Like in a spiritual way? I thought this was about DNA and politics." "So did I. It's not. It's about her waiting 900 years for a soul to come back. And she thinks it's mine." He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm having memories, Taeyong. Real ones. Of flying ships. Of her. It's like I'm reading a book about another man's life. But I remember the feelings." "That's heavy," Taeyong said, lost for words. "So, are you still you?" "I don't know," Junsu whispered. It was the most frightening thing he had ever admitted. "The man who loved her, Taejin, he's brave, decisive. I'm just a guy who likes old dirt. What if he takes over? What if Junsu just fades away?" Taeyong leaned closer to his camera. "Listen, you dug up a weird space thing and your first call was to me, not the government. You shared your last kimchi with me when I was broke. That's you, Junsu. That's my friend. Don't let some ancient space ghost eat that guy. Okay? Be both. Be both." The words stuck in Junsu's mind. Meanwhile, the political world was moving. Ilya was busy with councils and reports. She was warmer to him in private, but careful, watching the memories unfold in him with a mix of hope and worry. Her aide, Kale, was always nearby, his watchful eyes missing nothing. The trouble came during a public walk in the palace gardens. It was meant to be a simple photo event, to show the united consort and empress. They were on a path between high, shimmering hedges. Ilya was explaining a flower's origin when Junsu saw it. A flicker of movement in the reflective surface of a garden orb. Not a guard. A figure in dark gray, moving fast. A memory slammed into him, hard and clear. Ambush protocol. The Calathi Gorge. Protect the flank. It was Taejin's memory, pure instinct. "Down!" Junsu yelled. His voice was not entirely his own. It had a command in it he'd never used before. He didn't think. He shoved Elia sideways. Behind the solid base of a crystal sculpture, a searing bolt of blue energy crackled past where she had been, scorching the hedge. Panic erupted. Guards shouted. Kale had a weapon out, his face a mask of fury. The attacker fired again, this time at Junsu. He froze, Junsu's fear locking his limbs. But his hand shot out on its own, hitting a small control panel on the sculpture's base. A dome of shimmering energy flickered to life around them, just in time. The bolt deflected harmlessly into the sky. He had known the shield was there. Taejin had known. The attacker was quickly subdued by the guards. But the damage was done. In the secure room afterward, Kale delivered the report, his voice tight. The attacker was a low-level tech, but his financial links trail back to supporters of High Minister Valerius. This was a test, to see if the key was legitimate or just a primitive puppet, to see if you could be removed easily. Elia looked at Junsu, her eyes wide. You activated the garden shield. That system is not public knowledge. How did you know? Junsu looked at his own hands. They were still trembling. I just knew. I saw the panel and I knew. It was like remembering where the light switch is in your own home. He met her gaze. But I froze when he shot at me. Taejin pushed you. Junsu froze. She stepped closer. Taejin was a soldier trained for centuries. You are not. But your instinct to protect was the same. And your knowledge saved us. You used his memory with your own mind. Kale watched them, his analytical gaze shifting. For the first time, he looked at Junsu not as a problem, but as a person. The High Minister will see this as a failure, but also as a confirmation. You are more than you appear. You are now a threat to his plans. The danger to you both has just become real. Junsu felt a new feeling rise above the confusion and fear. It was anger. Anger at being used as a political pawn. Anger at being shot at. Anger at having his very self messed with. He was not just Taejin's echo. He was not just Junsu the victim. The attack forged something new. A sharp, clear purpose. Okay, Junsu said, his voice firmer. They want to see if I'm a key or a person. Fine. Let's show them what a person from Earth can do. He looked at Elia. And you need to teach me. Not just about him. About everything. About your empire, its politics, its secrets. If I'm in this, I need to understand it. Not as a ghost, but as me. Elia nodded. A real, proud smile touching her lips. The echo of the commander had saved their lives. But it was the anger of the archaeologist that was choosing to fight back. The two were starting to talk to each other. The quiet days were over. Junsu stopped being a passenger in his own life. He asked questions. He demanded answers. Elia became his teacher, and he was a determined student. He learned about High Minister Valerius, who believed the throne should pass to a council of old families, not remain with Elia's line. He learned about the delicate balance of power across the star systems. He studied star charts until his eyes ached, and the memories from Taejin helped, giving him an instinct for spatial routes that felt like remembering a childhood home. But he also brought his own tools, his way of thinking. Valerius and his allies were like a hidden layer in an archaeological dig. You had to look for the patterns in the dirt, the subtle shifts. Junsu started reviewing security logs, not as a soldier, but as a researcher looking for inconsistencies. One evening, he saw it. A pattern of small energy fluctuations in the palace data stream. They were tiny, like a whisper. They always happened just before minor system glitches. Elia's techs had dismissed them as background noise. But to Junsu, it looked like a signature. Someone was testing the palace's digital walls, looking for a weak spot. It's a probe, he told Elia and Kale, pointing at the lines of data. Not a blunt attack. Careful search. They're looking for a backdoor. They're archaeologists like me, digging quietly. Kale was impressed. That is not a military analysis. But it is correct. We have traced the signal origin. It is from a communications hub controlled by Valerius's faction. The trap was set. Valerius's people, confident their digital probe was unseen, planned a real strike. They would use the back door to disable the palace shields during a crucial council meeting. Then, they would send armed loyalists to restore order and take the Empress and her false consort into protective custody. Junsu knew the plan. His Earth perspective gave him the clue. But to stop it, he needed more than data. He needed to be in the council room. He needed to face them. The day of the council arrived. Junsu wore the formal consort's robes again, but he stood differently. He was not a symbol anymore. He was a shield. Elia sat on her throne, calm as stone. Valerius, a tall man with cold eyes, spoke about tradition and stability, his words hiding knives. Right on schedule, the lights flickered. A low hum died. The shield generators outside the windows powered down. Murmurs of alarm rose in the chamber. Valerius stood. A system failure. Guards, secure the Empress for her safety. The main doors hissed open. But it was not Valerius's men who entered. It was Kale and the Imperial Guard, surrounding a group of confused-looking soldiers in Valerius's colors. These men were found attempting to breach the armory, Kale announced, his voice ringing in the sudden silence. Their orders, traced to your office, Minister. Valerius's face tightened. A misunderstanding. The priority is the Empress's safety in this blackout. Then Junsu spoke. He walked to the center of the room. All eyes turned to him, the primitive Earthman. The blackout isn't a failure, Junsu said. His voice was clear. He held up a small data pad. It's a test. You wanted to see if your probe worked. You wanted to see if you could create chaos. But you dug in the wrong place. He tapped the pad. The lights and hum returned instantly. The shields outside glowed back to life. Your backdoor didn't disable our systems. It just showed us where you were digging. We built a wall right in front of you. Valerius sputtered. You have no authority. You are a key, a tool. You understand nothing of our ways. You're right, Junsu said, and he felt a strange calm. The ghost of Taejin gave him the courage to stand there. But the words were all Junsu's. I don't understand your old hatreds. On Earth we have a saying, the past is for learning, not for living. You are so busy protecting a dead past, you are killing your future. Elia has given you 9 centuries of peace. And I am not a key. I am her choice. And my only authority is that I stand with her. He was not a commander. He was not a politician. He was just a man from Earth speaking simple sense in a room full of plotters. The honesty of it was a weapon they didn't have. Valerius was exposed. His plot was broken. The council saw it. He was led away, his power crumbling. Later, on a high balcony, Junsu and Elia looked out. Below them, the crystal city sparkled. Beyond it, a tiny blue dot hung in the blackness. Earth. You did not become Taejin today, Elia said softly. You did something he never could. He was a soldier of the Empire. You spoke as a citizen of 2 worlds. You were something new. Junsu finally understood. The memories were not a curse. They were a gift. They were not replacing him. They were making him more. He was Junsu, who loved history and his friend Taeyong. And he was also the part of Taejin that loved Elia and the stars. He didn't have to choose one. He was both. A bridge. He looked at Earth, then at the vast empire around him. He thought of the fear he'd felt, the confusion. Now he felt a purpose. I will stay, he said. It was his choice. Not because of a law or a ghost or a debt. I will help you rule. Not as Taejin. Not just as Junsu. But as us. This new person we're making together. Maybe I can help you look forward. Not just back. Elia took his hand. This time, her touch was not the grip of an empress claiming her due. It was the touch of a partner, grateful and sure. For the first time in 910 years, she was not waiting or searching or ruling alone. She was simply standing with someone, looking at the future. And Junsu, the man from Earth, held her hand and looked at the stars, no longer afraid. He was home.